Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started momentarily. We're just waiting for Lindsay to get logged back in, and then we'll get started. Welcome back, Lindsay.
I'm back. I don't know what happened, but awesome. We are back and we are ready to go. I'm so sorry. That was really, really weird. All of a sudden, I had no idea where my screen was or what was happening. But I'm here. We're good to go. Hi, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Teacher Leadership Framework Overview. Get ready to interact with us. We're going to use the chat for some things. We're going to use Padlets. We're going to use different ways. Normally, this is a really interactive opportunity, but we don't have Zoom rooms and we don't have other ways to do that. So we're going to try to engage you as much as possible. So hopefully you guys can be there with us. Oh my gosh, it is warm, isn't it? Wow, 80 degrees. You guys, we went to Mexico for like 3 days right after school got out. And when we left Mexico, it was 85. And when we got back to Washington, it was like 110. Something was really wrong. All right, well, that's interesting. This is a good question. Would you rather have it warm or cold? Would you please, in the chat, introduce yourself? We'd love your name and your role. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you a couple of would you rather questions. So make sure that you are ready in that chat. Let's try it out. All right. Nice. I got my teachers in the house. I got my specialists. Yes, technology directors, high school, PD support, yes. All right, Salmon Creek, love it. Okay, 8th grade ELA, 3rd grade. Awesome, you guys. I'm so glad you're here. One of the things that we love at C-STEP is that we think all teachers are teacher leaders. In fact, we say teacher because it works with the C-STEP, but we definitely believe that all educators are leaders, and actually all educators are teachers, right? We're all learning from one another. Our kiddos are learning from everyone that they encounter during the day, and so I love that. Lindsay Dix, I love the way you spell your name. I'd like to tell you that when I was in the 3rd grade, I once turned in a paper the way I always wanted to spell my name, which is L-Y-N-D or L-Y-N-Z-I-E. And my 3rd grade teacher gave me that paper back and said, that is not the name the Lord nor your mother gave you, and wouldn't grade the paper till I spelled it correctly. So I like the way you spell your name. Okay, here we go. Would you, again, I will tell you, I am Lindsay Stevens. I'm the executive director at the Center for Strengthening the Teaching Profession. I spent 15 years as a high school teacher and 2 years as a new to career mentor teacher. I'm an NBCT in, AYA Social Studies. I'm going to have Erin, did you introduce yourself while I was messing around with my screens?
No, I'm Erin Marswick with Center for Strengthening the Teaching Profession. I run communications and events for C-STEP, and it's a joy to be with you today.
Yes, Erin is my guru. She helps me out so incredibly much. I cannot tell you. If all educators had an events and communications manager, let me tell you, we'd have some great events and great communication. But here we go. So get ready, guys. Would you rather fend off a shark or a mountain lion? Would you rather a shark? Okay, okay. All right, I promise this will become slightly applicable. Yep. Oh, mountain lion can't swim. Sherry, I hear you. I'm not a great swimmer, not at all, and I'm super scared of sharks. A shark. Oh, you guys, my brother took me to see Jaws when I was 5, when he was supposed to be babysitting me. And every once in a while, I'll look in a pool and just make sure that there's no Jaws in there. So I hear ya. Okay. Next one is, would you rather have to escape a riptide or quicksand? I guess we're back to not a strong swimmer, right? Yeah, quicksand. Quicksand always makes me think of, is it Indiana Jones? There's a, throw me a branch and he throws him a snake. I don't know. My husband would be really upset. Thank you. Thank you, Sierra, for confirming that, because my husband would be really upset that I was even a little wishy-washy on that one. Okay, last one. No, you're not going to die in any of these situations. I promise. We'll get there. Here's one that's a little easier. Would you rather have to survive adrift on a lifeboat or remove a leech? They're just for the last 2 options. Yeah, leech, but man, still scary. Why so much water? I chose a lot of water scenarios, I realize now. I'm not sure why. A lifeboat. Patricia, you would take adrift on a lifeboat over a leech. Okay, I don't know. If it was a spider, I might take the lifeboat. Okay, some of you would rather lifeboat than leech. If it was a spider, I'd take the lifeboat. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you why I'm asking you these funny questions. I'm going to have Erin drop a link in the chat to a Padlet. If you haven't done a Padlet before, this is your chance. So we are going to take a look at a Padlet. There we go. And what I'd love for you to do on this Padlet is choose one of these scenarios, and I'd like you to use the comments function, if you can, to tell us how this is an analogy for teacher leadership. And if you can't read them really well, what I will tell you is if you double click on them, they will get big on your screen so you can actually read it. So for example, teacher leadership. To survive a teacher leadership scenario, what should I do? Don't panic. I like that, right? When you're a teacher leader and you get stuck, don't panic. Do not swim in towards shore, which I like that, right? Don't turn back. If you're a teacher leader and you're, drawing the hard line and you know that you're doing the right thing, don't turn back. Swim parallel to shore. I like that. Like we were on this path. I'm not going to turn back. I'm going to remind you, I know where we're going. And if you cannot swim out of the riptide, float on your back and allow the riptide to take you away from shore. So if you really, really can't get out of it, you're just going to have to relax and let it take you. So that is an example. And I will tell you that this one really works for me, especially because one of my mottos, Erin knows this, is if you can't get out of it, get into it, right? It's kind of the riptide scenario. I like it. Okay, I'm going to be quiet and let you guys go ahead and use the comments in this Padlet to tell us which one of these do you think is an analogy for teacher leadership? All right. I think I've managed to turn off those annoying notifications. We'll see. Yes. Okay. I love this, you guys. So true. Imagining using the mountain lion technique with my students. Yes, I love it. Fighting off a mountain lion. Yes, right? Yep, fending off a shark. You have to move quick and make decisions. I love it. You guys clearly have some teacher leadership experience, right? Feel confident, remain calm, be courageous and unafraid to stand up to the opposition. I like that. Yeah, common wisdom may be incorrect. Ooh, I like that very much. Do what you know might actually work. Nice. Okay. You never, yeah, carry a pole. Be prepared. I like that so much. You never know what's going to come your way, but once you get into it, don't panic. I love it. Prepared ahead of time with the right tools. That's kind of how I feel about the surviving adrift in a life raft, right? All right. All right, you guys, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite activities. We do this so often when we do our teacher leadership training in person. And so I was really excited when I sort of figured out a way to do parts of it virtually, because I just really love it. It does make us giggle. So yeah, I like that fun. It definitely does entertain me to think about it and bring some lighthearted but realistic ideas to this, right? It's kind of a scary thing to be a teacher leader. We're not always positive what we're doing, what direction we're going, who's going to follow us, right? Who's going to follow us? Have you guys seen that teacher leadership video with the first follower, and how that first follower is kind of the most important? It's not actually the leader, but the person goes, oh yeah, okay, this is someone I can get behind, even though no one else is following them. I think that's always really an interesting piece of teacher leadership, and just not knowing who is coming with us, but having to be willing to do what we know is best anyway, right? So I love it. All right, here we go. So Erin, my wonderful Erin, has dropped a link to the participant agenda in the chat. I always like to provide participant agendas just so there's more than one way to get links, especially if we're doing things virtually. And also just so that people can know where we're going and you can get back to the resources later. Having an interactive participant agenda really helps so that we don't have to send 80 million follow-up emails, which we do anyway, but it cuts down on one, I guess. So our goals for today, we're going to discuss and reflect on the teacher leadership knowledge, skills, and dispositions. And then I'm really hoping that you will begin to envision next steps in your teacher leadership journey. And again, if you've just joined us, please know that when we say teacher, we mean leadership for everyone. And the reason why we use the word teacher is, one, it works really well in our acronym, CSTEP. And two, sometimes when we say leadership, we tend to envision that as only administrative leadership, which is a really important piece of leadership, but we're just talking about leadership of educators from, some of the biggest bits of knowledge and wisdom that my son has brought home are from the crossing guard at his school. So we believe that the crossing guard to the superintendent, that's who we're talking about when we're talking about teacher leadership. Everyone is a teacher, and so everyone is a leader. So that's really what we mean when envisioning your next steps or the teacher leadership knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to have you read this article. So I'm actually going to be quiet, and I'm not going to play my music so that people can take the time to read this. But as you read, what I'd like you to do is consider actions or activities you've done under the title in each role. So you'll see that the article is organized in 10 roles. So resource provider, instructional specialist, and then consider how these roles might change and evolve considering the current situation how we don't really know. Some of us know that we're going back in person. We don't. We're wearing masks. We're not, right? So how might those leadership things, and also just the idea of how many conversations about equity and what that means are changing. And so how are we going to address all of these things as leaders? And then just jot those down. So at the end, I am going to ask you for some information about how many of these roles you have fulfilled and how comfortable you are in each of the roles. So have that in your head as you're reading. And I really am going to be quiet for a full 10 minutes while you read this article and jot down different times, different roles that you have had in your leadership journey. If you have any questions for that, you can just put those in the chat. All right, everybody, we have about 30 more seconds to go ahead and take a look at this article and see which roles you have done the most, and also think about which ones you are comfortable in. All right, so now we're going to take a little bit of a group poll and talk about what are our roles. So Erin's going to put the link to, I think I put it in there. Nope, did not. We're going to put the link to the, goodness gracious, to polls everywhere. You can see right up there. It's actually on the top of the screen as well. And I can grab that. You guys also have it on your agenda. So I can find it. I got it in. Oh, Erin got it before me. See, she's so great. Okay, so when you go to this link, it's going to ask you to rank these in the order that you have or had performed the most to the least. So maybe you've had this role or you have performed this role over your career, most to least. And hopefully this one is active. I'll make sure. Nope. Yep, this one is active. Nice. Whoa, look at that. All right. We're going to let this sit for just a minute more while we finish up. If you've hopped in, feel free to take the poll. You can click on that link down there. All right. Nice. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a little picture of that one so we can see it. And now we are going to go to the next one. It's going to be the same link. You'll probably have to refresh. So now the question is, it is rank the one that are in order of the one you're most comfortable in to those you are least comfortable in. So maybe I'm, an instructional specialist, but I'm not necessarily comfortable there. Or maybe I'm often a mentor. So what is it? Where are your comforts? Yep, that one is active. All right, there we go. Keep those. Ooh, lots of change on that one. I like it. I like seeing it move like that. That's cool. All right, I'm going to wait about 30 more seconds if people need to hit enter. I've never done a ranked activity before like this, so I'm not 100% sure how long it will take everyone. All right. Take a little picture of that one too. Oh, learning facilitator jumped up. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so now just using the chat, thinking about what we saw, I will tell you, so I did snap a little picture, and our kind of highest one for what we do the most in this group, where we is really learner, resource provider, classroom supporter. So this is top to bottom, right? In first place, what we do the most is learner, then resource provider, classroom supporter, catalyst for change, mentor, school leader, curriculum specialist, learning facilitator, data coach, and then instructional specialist was at the bottom. And then the things that we're comfortable in mirror it relatively closely. We have learner, resource provider, classroom supporter, mentor, catalyst for change, instructional specialist was higher, learning facilitator, data coach, school leader, and curriculum specialist. So thinking about those in the chat, what roles do we seem to be most performed by those in this group? What roles are we comfortable, less comfortable? And really, that question is like, what might it take in context to get you into one of those roles? What is giving us pause about some of those roles? So if you can just share some thoughts about that poll and its outcomes in the chat, that would be great. Ooh, the backlash, Sierra. What is that? Oh, yes, yes. So curriculum specialist is sometimes a hard one to understand exactly, right? But, I think sometimes it doesn't have to be actually formal. A lot of us have people who are kind of that curriculum specialist. They've been doing it for a long time, or they, actually are new and they have new curriculum. So maybe sometimes it's not not a role that is as specific, but I think, it can be for sure. Yeah, Letitia, that makes sense, right? Doing something one-on-one like that mentor, classroom report, or classroom supporter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally, Sierra. I understand that. People that aren't as forward-thinking or progressive or just kind of aren't ready to change, that's really hard. Oh, fun. That's hard. Yeah, opportunity, I think. I think opportunity is something we see a lot, will change people's perspective and what roles they've been in, right? Just what opportunities have you had, are there, and figuring out how to kind of get into those opportunities. Yeah, true, Dan. We don't need that stress. Yep. Oh, yeah. Kelly, data is definitely a hard one for me. I think that we have to be really careful. You're right. Like, what data are we really looking at? And we have to remember that student data tells us more about ourselves and how we're approaching students than it does about our students, right? So how can we look at data and think about, yeah, the system problem, what are we collecting, as opposed to the student focused data? I like that, Kelly. It's true. Yep. Yep. Confrontation's really hard, for sure. And it takes a skill set, and you kind of have to get used to it, which seems weird. Nobody wants to get used to confrontation, but I'm definitely, I would say, recovering people pleaser, but I don't know that I'm recovering. So I totally understand that, for sure. Yeah, I like that. Like a holiday ham. It is. It is. And data can tell us so much, but it has to be used for our own reflection. Yep. Yep. So true. We have to be willing to change if we're going to look at it, because it's not the kids. Yep. I love it. Awesome. I love it. I love this conversation. Thanks, you guys, so much. So some of the things that we're seeing in this conversation is that we do have some hopes and fears about teacher leadership. I can see that. And this is really common whenever we have these conversations. And, you know, you guys are really getting at the heart of some of the things, that it's a really vulnerable place to put yourself as a teacher leader. It can also be a really vulnerable place, especially to put yourself if you're not in that formal teacher leadership role. But when people are looking at you, looking to you, or get those opportunities, we really need to grab them. And not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of the kids in our systems. So with that, we're going to kind of move toward the teacher leadership framework. So the teacher leadership framework is something that CSTEP came up with, created in 2008. Actually, before I was here, I was in the classroom, and I first became acquainted with it when I got my national board certification, and I went to a national board conference, leadership conference, and I had no idea about the teacher leadership framework. And when I saw it, I realized that it really gave me an ability to talk about the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that I was seeing the teacher leaders around me perform, but also it gave me the words and the ability to talk about what I wanted to do, both what I felt myself doing naturally, but also what I knew I needed to grow in. So how do I get better at, you know, looking at data in a way that changes things? How do I get better at seeing the system and talking to adults and making sure we're all getting better together? These were things that I didn't know how to do. I was just kind of following along. And so when I went to this conference, it was a huge aha for me. That was in 2000, I think, 11. And then I sort of followed CSTEP around and said, when are we going to update the framework? When are we going to update the framework? And so when I began working here, it was one of the first projects that we accomplished. So in 2018, we brought together another group of teacher leaders. So this was made by teacher leaders originally. And then we brought together another group of more diverse, very specific, equity-minded teacher leaders in order to add a sixth element to the framework of equity lens, and to update the language throughout it to really get us thinking about more equitable education for everyone and have those conversations that we needed to have. This framework, I'm going to have you read the first 2 pages in just a second. But before that, I do want to say that this framework is not the typical framework that teachers think of, because this was created before we had our instructional frameworks. And so it's not Danielson, it's not Marzano, it's not Cell 5D. It is really a framework for starting conversations, thinking, listening, posing questions, and really talking about the heart of teacher leadership. It's not a checklist. It's not an assessment. It's not anything like that. And valuation, that's really not what it's meant to be. And so it's way more of a reflection tool. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to give you about 5 minutes, and I'm going to have you just read over just the first 2 pages. So we've got page 1, page 2, okay, right here. And so what I'm going to have you do is read over that section, and I am going to just have you respond in the chat. Anything that jumps out to you. So ideas, impressions, assumptions, just anything in those first 2 pages that really is resonating with you or that you are thinking about. So 5 minutes to read over this. All right. Yeah, you guys are just really, really thoughtful. I think you're so right, Carrie. I think that is really an interesting paradigm, right? You have to constantly be growing, and there has to be that ongoing examination and changing. Yeah, Dan, I do think that's true, right? When someone says, I don't need whatever, it's like you're constantly changing. So it is a sense of like always thinking about what you're doing, what's next, what can we bring to the table, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Becca, right? Like finally there must be a variety of opportunities for leadership. I think that's really true. And I do know that when I was in the classroom, I felt like there was sort of the core people. And even though I was one of those people that was like always doing the leadership stuff, at some point I got like burnt out. Like, how can we get more people involved in this? So I think that it keeps everyone interested in growing and learning from one another, and those opportunities really connect you as a community, I think. So yeah, I absolutely think that's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's so great. Okay. Well, I am excited to get you guys really diving into the leadership framework now. So, this is a 2-hour session. A lot of times we do these in, oh gosh, I did 6 whole days in Shoreline. So one day it was actually 8, so lots of room for thinking about and analyzing teacher leadership. So we're going to go quick and dirty with each section. And dirty, quick and dirty. I don't mean that. Quick and I don't know a better word, but that's what I guess that's what I mean. Whatever. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through each section of the teacher leadership framework using a protocol for each one. So we're going to start and go with them in the order that they are. So starting with working with adult learners, that's our one that has the brain. Communication is our icon, are the little talking bubbles. Collaboration are the hands shaking. Knowledge of content and pedagogy are these books. Systems thinking is this kind of system map, and then equity lens is the eye. But we're going to go through them one by one, and we are going to do a see, think, wonder using a Jamboard. So the first thing, I hope you still have the framework up, and I'm going to have you just take a look that we're going to start with working with adult learners, and that's actually on page 3. So page 3 of the framework is working with adult learners, and you'll notice that each section of our framework has a section that is the knowledge, skills, and dispositions. And that's really the ideas that we think, not we, the educators who made this, not C-STEP, but that the teacher leaders who made this believe should be knowledge and skills, dispositions that are nurtured and grown. And so really thinking about how we can learn and grow, kind of what you guys are already really getting into just by looking at the introduction, is that there's a constant ebb and flow of this. And so what I'm going to have you do is we're all going to look at just page 3 of working with adult learners. And then using the Jamboard and the prompts of see, think, wonder, I did some examples. You can open up the Jamboard here and just create sticky notes of things that you see, think, and wonder connected to this one page, page 3 of the teacher leadership framework. So my examples were, I see that there are many knowledge and skills needed to build trusting relationships. I think that working with adult learners requires different skills than working with younger learners. And I wonder how I can best grow my skills around disrupting assumptions. So you guys can go for it in this Jamboard and reading page 3. I'm going to give it about 5 minutes. And go ahead. All right. That was the timer. So now what I'd really like, if you're ready, is to have you kind of take a look at this Jamboard. And what are we seeing, thinking, wondering just about what we are looking at here? We can just put some of those reflections in the chat. So the reflections from the reflections on the Jamboard. Yeah, a year's worth of PD just for working with adult learners. It's true, right? We kind of have to get used to those things. Yep. Yeah, I think that that's a really interesting question. Someone wrote, I wonder how to help fellow teachers who are too scared or too complicit to try new things. These are all really, really important questions. Yeah, the importance of dispositions, right? What we bring to the table. Yeah, I love it. Hey, this document is free and available on the website. You have the PDF. So it is a great thing to bring back to conversations and definitely to help people just think about what they're naturally bringing to the table, where they can grow. That's awesome. All right, we're going to spend about 30 more seconds on this one. And then if you look at your teacher leadership framework on page 5, there is the the section on communication. So the section on communication is right there. And when you're ready, there is another Jamboard for communication, see, think, wonder on page 2. So I'm going to go ahead and be quiet again and let you do this. I'm going to set my timer for 7 minutes this time. That will give you some time to read it over and then go back and do some of the Jamboard stickies if you need to. All right, that was 7 minutes. Take about a minute more if you're typing something out there to put it on there. It's really, really thoughtful, you guys. I love to see all of these things that you're thinking, wondering, seeing. It's really interesting for us. So great. And I think a lot of this is so spot on. Communication is a skill that most people need to continuously work at, right? Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So when you're ready, the next section of the framework is collaboration. And it is starting on page 7. So please go to page 7. We'll keep working on that Jamboard. All right. Again, we'll just take a minute or two to keep populating this one. Thank you guys so much. This is such great interaction. Again, I wish we could be discussing it all out with our, everyone's voice, not just mine. But I'm loving that you're participating and putting all of these thoughtful pieces into the Jamboard. It's really great. Awesome. And I really like to see, you guys saying, oh, I think that we're doing this, right? We're helping to do this. And that you are modeling some of these things. That's really great. It's awesome. Ooh, nice. Little visual for us. I like it. It's interesting. The posted about reads the group as essential to leadership. So how can you do that if you don't understand those that you're working with? So definitely getting to know that, right? Relationships matter. We did a session yesterday on facilitating virtual collaboration, and we really kind of grappled with that, how much relationships matter. So how do you collaborate and do these kinds of things virtually and get to know one another? It's really interesting. Yeah, awesome. Yep. Yeah, and the proverb at the top. I really like the proverbs and those things that our teachers chose. I think it's really great. Yeah, interesting. Oh, heel diggers. That's interesting. I say boulders. Sometimes people are boulders in the stream. We have to part waters and go around them. And I hope that, erosion will start to erode what's holding them to the bottom of the stream. And pretty soon we'll bring them with us. Awesome. Okay, well, when you're ready, everybody, you know what we're doing. We're going to knowledge of content and pedagogy, which I believe should start on page 9. It does. So have at it. When you are ready, I'm going to set the timer again. All right, you guys, that was 7 minutes with that section of the framework. And again, this is just so interesting. I appreciate your participation so much. And I really see how you're really thinking about how these all go together. Also, definitely thinking about, how we do things equitably and creating that culture of openness and new application. I love that you guys are really honing in on those pieces of, lack of ego, willing to share, thinking about how to get students to do those things. The restorative practices expectation was definitely here. I think restorative practices as a pedagogy is definitely, I think, what the creators were getting at. So thinking about how you bring those restorative practices to the classroom and share those with one another. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Yeah, culturally responsive teaching is getting harder and harder. I wonder about that. I wonder what is making it feel harder and harder, or if we need to maybe reevaluate what that really means to us and be able to hone in on the most important pieces. The essence of that, it's really important. All right, you know what to do at this point. We're all pros, 2 more sections left. So let's move on to systems thinking. All right, y'all. Another great section overview. Keep posting on this one for a minute or two more. We'll take a look. Really interesting. So interesting. Yeah, the big picture, dealing effectively with resistance, definitely easier if you're not siloed. Yeah. Yeah, I resonate a lot with the one that asks the question of how many people have a desire to deepen their knowledge of systems of oppression rather than go on their own comfortable way. It's a hard thing to do once know better, do better, right? And so that's a hard thing. You're really challenging yourself. Yeah, definitely being uncomfortable is the only way to sustain change throughout the whole system, which I think goes back to, why sometimes people might resist deepening knowledge, because it can make you uncomfortable. Great. Yeah, the idea of the formal and informal hierarchy is very interesting. I think it's something that teachers feel a lot. And so to me, it was kind of actually refreshing to see it on the framework. It's one of those things I've heard talked about in like throwing the skunk on the table, right? Like you can't deal with it unless it's out in the open. And so it's one of those things where we kind of skirt around the idea of formal and informal hierarchies, and then who gets to make those decisions? How is that part of sort of the culture of your system or your school? It's a really interesting thing to examine. I love it. All right, guys, last one. And the last one that we have is equity lens. So this one is the most recent, near and dear to my heart. And it begins, on page, not 11, 13. So equity lens, page 13, very last Jamboard. All right, y'all, that is the 7 minutes, but I can see that you are thinking really deeply about this. And so many thoughtful ideas. Again, the teacher leadership framework is supposed to do this, right? It's supposed to get us to question and think and have conversations. It's definitely not a to-do, and we don't have all the answers. And so that's what I think is really interesting every time I do any sort of work with this framework, because it just leads to more and more thinking. You guys, just these thoughtful things about, equality of outcomes and how does bias impact that, right? So whose outcomes, who gets to decide what outcomes are for whom? I think that's so important. I see, some wonderings about the makeup of the team that developed the framework. The very last page has the names of all of the people on the team. I can promise you that they were not all the same. Or not have the same necessarily world experience, but we did definitely try to diversify the backgrounds and the ethnic diversity and also the regional diversification. I think sometimes we can get that I-5 corridor, but we definitely tried our hardest to include people from many different places, agencies, and roles and backgrounds throughout the states. You can take a look at that. I think reflecting on your own bias is so important. Is kind of the first step. We can't move forward with that equity lens if we aren't questioning our own background and where it came from. And I really love this one, maybe the hardest one to understand or complete, because you have to rethink everything you've been taught, right? So you just kind of every time, right? You're constantly rethinking everything. I mean, I taught for 15 years. There are things that I said, did, that I really thought were best for kids in my first year that cringe in my last year. So totally understand that. So great. So we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to move us on. What I was going to have you guys do is take a look at that Jamboard and use the chat to talk about what patterns you're seeing and kind of what we're collectively coming up with. So if you want to think about that while I sort of lead us on out to our last 5 minutes, go right ahead. I wish we had more time. Like I said, we do this often in 8-day leadership academies. We've seen people do them in just different days for different sections, or they'll take a 3-hour morning on just, adult learning and those kinds of things. So know that these things are open and available on our website. They are free to use. We would love for you to tag us and lead people back to our website, but only because we think we have other great things for teachers to access there. And so, use them. Let us know how it goes. Stay in contact. We love that. So I'm not going to have you do this, but I'm going to show you the activities that we didn't get to today, and they are linked on your agenda, the participant agenda. And so there are teacher leadership self-assessments. They are editable. They are in color on our website. Again, we don't think that this should be an evaluation tool, but it's a really great self-reflection tool. I know that I've done a couple PGPs. Had I had this tool, I would have used this for my PGP. And just, I just think there are so many different ways that these self-assessments can help us think about teacher leadership and our growth and development. And so I did want you to know that those are there and why there's a link. Also, there is a link to this document, which when we do this in a deeper dive, what we normally do is go through this kind of envisioning your leadership and just really thinking about going from what you're learning or thinking about right now into action. Because I think that was one of the things that I struggled with the most when I first came across the teacher leadership framework was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. and I have to learn all of these knowledge. Like every bullet point is something I should know and be able to do and hold in my head all the time. Like that's impossible. But this was really something that helped me think about like what ideas, actions, or roles might I consider. So some of those roles that we saw in the very beginning, what might we say? Oh yeah, I do want to become better at being a catalyst for change. So what are those connections? And then what knowledge, skills, or dispositions? So just bullets, right? Might I want to focus on for that specific goal? And then how will this benefit myself, my staff, my students, and just thinking that through as kind of a plan of action. So you also have a link to make your own copy of this worksheet if you would like to try that out. And lastly, before you go, I'm going to have us do three more, but one more round of polls everywhere, just kind of at a minute or 45 seconds each. So the first one's going to ask you what is one thing that was new for you today during this session. The second one's going to ask what's something you already knew coming into today, and what is one thing that was renewed for you today. So hopefully you can stay long enough to participate in these. If not, I totally understand. So here we go. You're going to go right back to that same link of polls everywhere. And let me know what was something that was new for you today that you didn't know at the beginning at noon, but that you think you know now. Nice, Sarah. I like that. Awesome. The framework, right? Yay, teacher, leader, framework. Yay, those are great words to see. I love it. Frameworks, cultures. Yes, right? Different types of leaders. I love it. All right, the next question is, what is something that you knew coming into today's session? Yeah, growth mindset, learning. Yeah, love it. This is the right audience, right? We've got those people that are there, that they're here thinking about trying things out. Growth. Yes, we have the people that are ready to think about growth. Awesome. All right. And last one is, what is something that has been renewed for you today in the last 2 hours? That went by so fast. Oh my gosh. Hope. That's so good. Yes. Wow, you guys, I'm just going to sit here and look at this for the next however long, but that is all we have as a formal session on the Introduction to the Teacher Leadership website. I'm going to put my, actually, Erin, could you put both of our emails in the chat box? If anybody wants to get a hold of us, we love all things teacher leadership. You are welcome, Letitia. You guys were such a great audience. Thank you for participating so much. And yeah, this was really fun. And we would love to just continue to talk and support anything out there. Oh, thank you, Dan. Oh, yay. Oh my gosh, so exciting. Thank you, Sierra. That's great. Kelly, best time so far in a very long time. Woohoo! That makes my heart full. All right. Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. Yep. As a teacher, you are a leader. That is right, Sarah Hart. Thank you, Kristen, for putting that back out there. Kirsten. The very first time I called roll, Kirsten, the very first time my student teaching all by myself, I totally said the J. And then I was like, no. So I always know. Oh, no, your name's not wrong. Nope, I love it. Yeah, I totally said it wrong though. But I learned. I love it. And now all my favorite names are, Kaisa and Mir. I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Well, thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Erin. So I think if I hit leave, it will
end our session.
Down, and I will see you
on the flip side
soon somewhere. Yeah. Bye. Thanks, Erin.